So we are live, guys. How you doing? Welcome. So today, whether you are an agent, whether you are an investor, and you are getting through learning about creative finance, um, we're gonna be talking about the challenges and concerns that normally agents go through when doing real estate transactions. In my experience, right now I am mainly working with real estate agents. In my experience, I get two type of reactions. I get the first one is they go, "Hey, I have never heard of this before. This is really cool." And they come back to the team. They go and talk to the broker or attorney or a lender, and they come back to me and they have tons of concerns, tons of questions, which is totally fine. That's reaction number one. And the reaction number two is, this is not possible. I have never heard of this before. This is legal. This is fraud. And I get many other concerns, many other questions, which I totally understand. If you never heard of this before, is totally fine. So we're going to go through those concerns, those challenges, those questions. And last time I did a video, an interview with Dustin. So we kind of knew about the experience, knowing from the investor's perspective. So this time I have an amazing guest, which is Matt DuSold, and he's an agent and investor. He is actually based in Arizona. So now you're not gonna hear from me as an investor. Now you're gonna hear directly from the experience of an agent. So this is really cool. Matt, thank you so much for joining. How you doing?
Yeah. I'm awesome. Thank you for having me here. I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
Of course. So, Matt, first of all, before we jump and talk about these challenges and concerns in creative finance, tell us a little bit of your background, how you got into real estate, and what are you currently doing today in real estate?
Yeah. So I started getting into real estate actually when the market crashed in 2009, and I was helping an investor out back then. We were just sending out postcards to all the foreclosures because obviously there were tons and tons of them on the market at that time. And I was pretty fresh out of college at that time. And so I wanted to make real estate my full-time career. And the investing side just wasn't going as well with that partnership. And so I said, well, I'll just get my real estate license because I was in sales anyway. And I said, I like real estate because I like homes. I like helping people. So I naturally just got my real estate license in 2010. And so I've sold real estate in Chicago, and then I've been back out here in Arizona now for 7 or 8 years. So really just kind of being a traditional real estate agent, if you may, here in the Phoenix area. And then I've known about PACE for a while. And so I got into the SubTo community and, kind of started educating myself and learning more of the ways of the creative side of things to be on the investment side as well. So, yeah.
That's so cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So you learn, okay, so you first went into real estate investing as an agent first, and then you learned.
Yeah. Well, I tried doing just the investment side, but when I say I tried the investment side, I didn't even know what was going on, right? So this guy was like, hey, here's a postcard, just mail these. And if you get somebody on the line, I'll help you out. And I was like, okay, why not? I was 22 at the time. I didn't know what was going on. So I'm just mailing postcards, and I'd get calls and then I'd give it to him. We didn't have an agreement in place. We didn't have anything, but I realized how life-changing real estate can be, right? And especially if you have those systems in place. And it was getting the phone to ring. And so I was like, okay, well, instead of going to work and then doing all these mailings, let's just make my work be a real estate agent. And so that's when I went to get my license. So then I could become my full-time job. And it still is my full-time, quote unquote, job. It's my day job. It's what I do, all day long. So.
Okay, perfect. So right now, for example, today, you've done traditional transactions. Have you done any creative transactions recently?
I've facilitated creative transactions as a real estate agent. Most of what I do from the investment side is actually on the lending side. So I typically am not the one doing the deals. I will lend on the deals. I don't personally do the deals as often, just because I don't want to hold rental properties, but I like to make the money more passively. So
interesting. So you told me that you have represented a seller on what was this transaction?
Yeah, so this was about a year ago now. And we had a seller in kind of like, if people aren't familiar with Phoenix, and what we call our Beverly Hills of Arizona, in a town called Paradise Valley. It's by far the wealthiest area of the town. And we had two sellers. They were married, of course, and they're both surgeons, but one was retiring. And so we had the property listed, and for people that don't know, right around 2000, like in the middle of 2022, the market started really, really slowing down because the interest rates kept increasing, right? So they kept increasing rates, which took all the demand out of the market. And so we had the listing, but part of the problem was our seller could not sell under X price, because if he sold at too low of a value, his attorney, or excuse me, his CPA told him it would not be worth it with the way that his wife was retiring, and then he was going to retire in a couple years, because the income would be too high and it didn't make sense from a tax standpoint. Okay. So we kind of dug our heels in at X price, and we just weren't getting much traction, weren't getting much transaction. We had some offers, but they weren't good enough. And so some investors came to us. They're local here and active in the community, and they presented us a subject to offer. And so our seller said, okay, I don't know what the heck this is, but I'm open to it if it makes sense. And that's really all we can ask for being an agent is, hey, if you come with an open mind, can I present you scenarios that might be good for you and more beneficial? And so we explained where the purchase price had to be with our investors. It ended up being about $3.2 million. And the way the deal worked is they came in and they gave us 10% down, so $320,000 down, non-refundable. And they were going to do a 10-year balloon. But within these 10 years, they're going to make monthly payments of $10,000. So my sellers actually cash flowed on the property about $1,500, $2,000 a month, until they end up, of course, either refinancing. These buyers are going to be their primary home. So until they either pay off the mortgage or refinance or do whatever it is to, take that loan and put it in their name, or just completely pay off the loan within the 10 years. So naturally, my seller's question was, is this legal? Like, should I even do this? And so, of course, we told him, consult with your attorney, make sure everything's good. And he did. And so he said, well, you're telling me is that if these guys give me 10% down, non-refundable, and they don't make their payment for 1 month, I get to give them a warning. And if after 2 months they don't repay me fully, then I can kick them out. And I said, yes. Yeah. He's like, so I'm getting $320,000 upfront, non-refundable. And we're like, yes.
That would be the case scenario, right, for your client.
Yeah, it's almost like you almost want them not to pay, right? Because then we can go do it again. So it's like, yes. He's like, okay, why would I not do this? And I said, well, I don't know. You have to ask yourself, are you okay with being a quote unquote landlord for the next possibly 10 years? And he's like, well, I get the money up front. I'm cash flowing. My debt's getting paid down. And in his situation, they're pretty well off, so they didn't need to sell this house in order to go get their next one. They were already building their house up in Colorado. So they said, I don't, this can stay in my name for however long. It doesn't matter to me. If I'm cash flowing, I get this large payment up front. And the big benefit for him, again, as I mentioned with you at the beginning, was they couldn't take the tax hit unless that property was worth X to them. And so this allows them to push that tax hit down until whenever he realizes the full profit from the sale, whenever that's going to be. Obviously, they still have it. They're still paying, and everything's going great right now. So it really helped from a tax perspective, but then got the sale done, and he got a large chunk of change up front while he gets the cash flow a little bit every month too. So yeah, it was pretty good. And it was great because, like I said, we weren't getting much transaction from the traditional sense, right? So like for him, he was worried that I might not be able to sell this. They didn't want to be landlords. So he didn't want to have to be a landlord and have the headache of having tenants. Luckily, when you do these SubTo transactions, the people, especially if they're their primary residents, it's their house. So they're going to not be that needy tenant. It's in the contract that if an AC goes out, it's on them. If anything happens to the house, it's on them. So he kind of got to wipe his hands clean and just move on.
So cool, man. Like,
yeah.
My question is, like, what would have happened if maybe you were not open on doing a creative transaction, a subject to transaction, like what would have happened if you have done a traditional sale, and like what were the difference in numbers?
I mean, honestly, we were, because the market was cooling down so much, he probably wouldn't have sold. Like, I mean, just being realistic, right? Because it just probably wouldn't have happened. And so he would have gone into a position where he ends up being a landlord, which he didn't want to be. We as agents wouldn't have gotten paid, right? And so
Yeah.
we wouldn't have got any commission. We gave him a slight discount, but we still got, really, especially when you're at that price point, what's a very good commission. So we got close to a full commission anyways on it. And so it really helped keep everybody happy. Otherwise, the agents that put in a lot of work and we spent money marketing the property and spent a lot of time marketing it, we would have lost everything. For him, they would have had to rent it because they already were moving to Colorado. The home was vacant. So they were is either gonna sit there empty until the market recovers and went up to where it made sense for them to sell, tax wise, or they're gonna rent it, which they didn't want to do. So it ended up, yeah, just the ability to have creative finance ended up making everybody's life easier and leaving happy.
That's so good. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, there you go, guys. Like there is like these deals are happening like every day. Like how many deals would you say are happening every day or a month inside SubTo? Like how many deals do you see happening?
I don't even, a ton. I just talked to somebody yesterday, and he's like, yeah, my marketing's bringing me about 7 opportunities a day. It doesn't, or 7 opportunities a week. I'm sorry. Doesn't mean that he's closing on all of them, but I know he's closing like 3-ish a week. And so like, that's just one person. And there's how many of us, like 11,000 or something like that in there. I don't even know. So, yeah, we do these all day long, every day.
Wow, that's amazing. No, thank you so much for sharing that, Matt.
Yeah.
Now, what would you say? Let's jump into like the normal questions, concerns, and challenges like we normally go through.
Yeah.
Or I mean, agents have in these creative transactions because,
100%.
for example, it's really interesting because I get a lot of agents that come back to me and say, okay, this is not legal, or why would a seller do this? I mean, we kind of understand why would a seller do this based on your example, but why do you think like agents say this is fraud or this is illegal?
So the problem in the real estate industry from a traditional sense is that when you go to real estate school, you aren't even really taught how to do the business. You're not taught how to market. You're not taught really how to like make a deal come together. The only thing you are taught is how not to get a lawsuit against you. And it's really just that. It's following legal things.
Yeah.
They never once tell you creative finance isn't legal because it's been happening for 100 years or however long. It's been happening for a very, very long time. So you go to a class and they don't teach you anything about how to make deals happen or how to market yourself. They just teach you how to not have a lawsuit against you and ridiculous history about your state and laws that don't matter. And then you go to your broker, who usually is the one who will train you, or the brokerage will put training on. And they also want to teach you how not to get a lawsuit against them, because a broker's number one job is to make sure nobody has a lawsuit against them. So they just want things as clean and easy as possible. Creative transactions are a little more complicated. And so I think that just goes back to making sure you have the right team around you and making sure the right people are in place to make sure you do it correctly. Because if you don't, there can be issues. However, if you do it with people that have knowledge and have a good team around you, it's legal, it's fine, and it can be done the right way to where everything is smooth. It's just, you hear the brokers all the time say, oh, it's not legal, or, oh, they didn't teach me this in class, so I don't know about it. So it's really coming from a more uneducated standpoint and a standpoint of my broker is scared that it could lead to a lawsuit if done incorrectly. So that's really where that comes from. Is it illegal? Absolutely not. But do you want to make sure you have the right team around you to make sure you do it properly? 100%. Because if you don't, you can run into challenges.
In this, thank you so much, Matt. In this deal that you did you use a transaction coordinator and a title company that does these transactions? Like what was it look like on the paperwork, the team? For you comfortable as well.
So for us, we had a transaction coordinator on our side, and then obviously we had him consult his attorney, and everything for him, he said, looked good on their side. And so really at that point, that's all you needed, right? On the buyer side, they were investors that do this all the time for themselves. And so they knew all the paperwork already. So from our side, being the selling side, it made it really easy. Just again, working with somebody experienced, it's, hey, we just need X, Y, and Z. And as long as all the paperwork looks right, then it's fine. It's comfortable to sign. And luckily, my client, I will say he's a really smart individual in that transaction. And so he looked through things, and it to him, it was actually like too simple. And so he's like, this is it. And so again, if everything's done right, all the paperwork's done correctly, it really is no different than a normal sale with a couple more disclosures. So
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's really good, man. Thank you so much. Now, I actually, you already answered this question, but let me ask it again.
Yeah.
I have agents that come back to me, or I hear about people that they come back to them and they say like, okay, I like the idea, but I talked to my broker and they said that it's fraud. So
Yeah.
maybe they know about it, but maybe they might mean about the do on sale clause.
Yeah.
So maybe because of the do on sale clause, maybe that's why they say it's fraud.
Possibly.
What would you say about the do on sale clause?
Yeah, so the due on sale clause is in there in case the ownership changes and everything. I would say if everything is done correctly, the due on sale clause rarely happens. Less than 1% of the time is what we see in our community where we're doing these deals all the time. And I think the other thing to remember is that even if the due on sale clause is called, the bank will still talk to you. And as long as you work it out with the bank, usually all it takes is a discussion. The bank wants to keep that mortgage, right? That's how they're making their money, especially if this mortgage is only 2 or 3 years old. It's mostly interest. That's where the bank makes their money. So they want to hold on to it. They don't want to lose that. That's how they make their money. So usually it's just a discussion and making sure everything is set up correctly. And so I think that as long as you do the insurance correctly, which is the big thing that usually gets the due on sale clause called, you do that correctly, which any TC can walk you through, and then loan servicing, right? So as long as the buyer is paying in to a loan servicing company, which automatically distributes the funds to the lender, and then whoever else gets the profit, if there is any of that, that usually satisfies everything for the banks. So it's more just a education piece. Unfortunately, it's a little different. It's not as well known out there. And if we can educate more people, they'll understand that this all goes on all the time.
That's so good. You mentioned something in there, like as long as the bank is seeing that you are making the payments, like why would they even like call the loan due, right? Like they are not in the business of foreclosing houses. So
no, they don't want to do that. That's how they're going to lose money. It takes them money and time to foreclose on you. They're making money by keeping that loan in place. They want to hold it there.
Wow. Let's say, because even though like we tell them and we guide them and we educate agents, or they know about this, like they are still concerned about the due on sale clause. So what would happen, like for every 1,000 transactions, like we have seen that it only happens once, twice, or 3 times. Like it's very low, right? Very low percentage of getting the due on sale clause called on you. So what would happen if you get the due on sale clause? Like what are things that you can do and work with the seller to avoid the due on sale clause?
Yeah. So obviously, like I mentioned, you want to make sure the insurance is right? So they stay on there as an additional insurer. And as long as they're on the insurance policy, that's usually what helps alleviate that. Sometimes that's all the bank will want to see, is that the seller is still like responsible for the mortgage, even though they're technically not, but they're still on there from the insurance standpoint. If they call the due on sale, it's not the end of the world, right? You still, oftentimes they'll give you maybe 60 or 90 days to figure it out. And sometimes it's simply just a conversation with the mortgage company. So it's either maybe you have to fix the insurance, put them back on the insurance, just have that discussion of, hey, like I will have a servicing company. We will make sure you get paid every single month. If none of it works, the worst case scenario is just that that individual, that investor has to go out there and figure that loan out, whether it's them getting a loan themselves or, working with a different bank to get that loan. But again, it's always best to just call the bank because they want to keep the debt in their name. They don't want to get rid of it.
Got it. No, that's really good. I want to add something in there. Another thing that you can do is, let's say the bank says, I don't care, I want my money back, right?
Yeah.
Another thing that you can do is go back to the seller, explain the situation. This happened. They are calling the do on sell clause. What you can do is deed the property, get the deed back to the seller, right?
Yeah.
You can do, depending on the state you are in, the general name is executory contract, but you can do agreement, which is the same as agreement for sale, land contract, bond for deed. So you can get the deed back to the seller, and now you're making the payments, and that's how you can also avoid the do on sell clause.
100%. Yeah, it all comes down to just being creative, and there's an answer to every problem usually. So you just got to get creative if any problems occur.
That's so good. I have another. It's a thing. One of the most common ones is, I like the idea, but my seller needs to sell this house to buy their next house, so we cannot do it. What would you say to that agent?
I think it depends. So if they need to buy their next house, the biggest question is always when, right? When? And so are they buying the house tomorrow? It may present a little bit of a challenge. Are they buying their house in a year? Then it might not. And so that, again, it goes back to the importance of the servicing companies. So every lender is different. Unfortunately, there's not like a hard and fast, this is the rule. But with servicing companies, they will usually realize that that seller has not been making the payments. Therefore, they're okay wiping out a chunk, sometimes 70%, sometimes after a year, even 100% of the DTI, the debt to income. And that is what all lenders care about. That's what they work their underwriting off of, is DTI. And so if that servicing company can prove that the seller has not been making the payments, anywhere from 70% or even 100% of that DTI is wiped off. And so if that seller wants to go buy a house in a year or 2 or 3 years down the line, it's very likely, not guaranteed, but very likely that it can be proven they haven't been paying and they will not have that DTI on their record. So the biggest question is when. And again, that's a case-by-case basis.
That's really good. Now, I think you already said that, like, it's all about like knowing the guidelines, and maybe you haven't, people just haven't heard of this before. Yeah. But it happens that we like the idea, everybody likes the idea, but then we go back to either an attorney or a lender, and they say that this is not possible. So I think it comes down again to just say that they just don't have the experience, right? They just need to learn about the guidelines.
Yeah, it's all in education, right? And so you talk to like attorneys or lenders or brokers, and they're all in the business, attorneys especially, of not having anything go bad. They want everything to be by the book, by the law, which this is, but they just don't have the knowledge of it. So it's all education is probably the best word to put it. And if they can get educated and shown that it is legal, it does happen all the time, it's going to be okay, then they're fine. And I think the biggest way to do that is probably, again, like if maybe this is your first SubTo deal, you have experienced partner that can show, hey, I've done this on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different HUDs, right? Provide those, show the properties, show them your experience, because nothing speaks louder than experience, right? And so if somebody looks at you and says, oh, okay, they've done this 5 other times and it's worked out 5 other times, it's going to be okay. So yeah, I think it's all just education. You're going to have to sometimes walk people through the process and show them that it's okay. And, nothing shows experience, or nothing shows a process better than your own experience. So
yeah, that's so good, man. No, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think we have covered the main ones. Like that's, I mean, everything you said, like it's really good. I mean, you already talked about your real life scenario. You have done a deal with a client. I think that the last one I have in here is, how is the seller protected? Again, like how is the seller protected? And maybe what they mean as well is like, how are the payments being made, and what happens if you miss on the payment? You kind of already
Yeah.
that's again another question.
So the servicing company, right? So the servicing company is essentially just like a mortgage company in a way, and they will give a proof of payment to everybody involved in the deal. So my seller gets his cash flow paid to him once those buyers from that house make their payment. And so then he knows, okay, I received my payment. He sees that the mortgage payment was paid. And so that's kind of the first line of protection for the seller. We have it written into the agreement that 30 days they're late. And after those 30 days, if they don't come current within 60 days, so if they don't make essentially two payments after they miss their one, that the house will revert back to the seller. And so that's how you're protected, right? And every deal is going to be different. You don't always get 10% down. So it depends where you are on each side of the deal. But if you are a real estate agent, it's very normal to ask for a 10% down or a 10% entry fee. And that's how your seller's protected. Nobody is going to want to lose out on, even if it's $30,000. It's not always $320,000, but even if it's $30,000, no one wants to just throw that away to miss two payments in the next 3 or 4 months. So, I think that's how we protect our sellers, is we get them money down and we just make sure it's very clear in the contract and everybody's very understanding of this is what happens. And that's really it in the real estate world, is that even if things are not, you're not experienced or knowledgeable on things, at the end of the day, you need to do what's best for your seller. And if a creative finance deal is best for your seller because A, it gets them a higher price point, or B, allows them to move on, or is saving them from foreclosure, or any of these scenarios, if that's what's best for your seller, you should do it, whether you know how to do it or don't. And if you don't know how to do it, go find someone that does so you can get educated on it. And so at the end of the day, if you're protecting your sellers or your buyers and you're doing everything that's in their best interest, that's all as a real estate agent that we can do.
Wow, now that's really good. The last thing that you mentioned, like, it's not about like not knowing or knowing about this real estate transaction. It's about like being open on hearing like other solutions, right? Like subject to seller finance, innovations, whatever creative finance strategies. Like, it's just a tool on your tool belt. So it's just another way that you can help the seller. And 100% is way better to sell the house cash, right? But sometimes like the market doesn't allow us investors or even homeowners. So we need to find other ways to help the seller.
100%. And as we see them all the time in the group of like a low equity properties that are getting sold right now. And somebody that maybe is getting into foreclosure, in no way is it best for that seller to have an agent take the time to list the property when they're already losing money, maybe have zero to no equity, and are going to have to pay even more and then do a short sale, when somebody like, for say in our group, or anybody really that just has knowledge of how to do this, can come in, save that seller from foreclosure, well, maybe even be able to give them money potentially and still pay the agent. So it's just really important to make sure you know all your options, or at least, like you said, be open-minded to it, because it truly can be the best option for the seller in that scenario.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Like, you don't know how many times like I've reached to, X property on Zillow, on the MLS, and they tell me, oh, it's already in that short sale process. I'm like, no way. Like, I should have called like a month ago.
Yeah,
right?
I know. Right.
Yeah, I get so disappointed. Well, I mean, yeah. Matt, thank you so much. I mean, you really like went deep dive to every question, explain everything. Like, thank you so much for sharing your experience. What are you looking for right now? You said that you are lending. Are you looking for opportunities? Like, how can people help you? Like, what are you doing?
That's the biggest thing for me is I typically am lending on properties or even businesses. So either if people need money, I would love to look at opportunities. My wife is a TC, so we're always trying to get her as many files so she can help as many people as well, right? So that's exactly it. Is we're just looking to help as many people out there as we can.
That's so cool. What do you do in your, like, as a bonus? What do you do in your free time besides real estate? In your free time, what do you do as a hobby?
Man, we just had our second baby a week ago, so we don't have too much free time right now. But in our free time, yeah, we just kind of hang out. We like to get outside as much as we can. Arizona's really nice, 9 months of the year. So luckily, we're at the end of the summer here. So we spend our time outside and just kind of hanging out with our kids and our friends as much as we can out here in Arizona. Go up north when it's in the summer to get the cooler air in the mountains. So yeah, we're big family people.
Wow. Oh, congrats, Matt, for your new
Thank
baby.
you.
And
Yeah.
guys, please, how can people connect with you? Like, what do you want them to connect on your email, on your Instagram, where Facebook?
Yeah, both. I mean, I'm not all that active on social media, but I always am like on it, if that makes sense. So I need to be more active in posting and whatnot. But my Instagram is at Matt DuSold, which is my name. My email is pretty simple. It's matt@mattdusold.com. So as long as you know my name, you can send me an email or get with me on Instagram or Facebook. So any DMs or emails, I'll answer pretty quickly.
There you go. I'm gonna put all the information, on the description, so everybody can connect with you.
Yeah.
So there you go, guys. That you have an agent that knows creative finance, so make sure to connect with him in Arizona.
Yeah.
He's looking for opportunities, for lending opportunities. So
Yeah.
that's amazing as well. So make sure to connect with him. Matt, I think that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining again. And yeah, that's
I
all.
appreciate it. Awesome. Thank you. Have a good one. Thank you for your time. We'll talk soon.
Got it, Matt. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.